It is Friday. You are watching the Sean Spicer Show. Get ready to sit back and enjoy an hour of unbelievable TV, video, wherever you are. It's going to be awesome. We're going to get you ready for the weekend. We have an unbelievable conversation coming your way with Tim Ballard. Tim was the person portrayed in that breakout movie of the summer called Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom made over $190 million. It only cost like 14 to make. I say only like I have 14 million, but as you know, that's cheap for a movie. Tim was that person that was played by Jim Caviezel in the movie that in real life went out and dedicated his life to helping bring people back, bring young children back from human trafficking. It was an unbelievable and powerful story. If you haven't seen it already, we're going to talk to him about human trafficking, about independent media, about his future. And the impact that the movie's had on him. So this is going to be a lot to get to. I'm excited to bring you this conversation. Let's get into it. All right. If you haven't seen the movie, then you've probably heard about the movie Sound of Freedom. It was that big blockbuster all summer long. It's based on the story of Tim Ballard. He had worked for the Department of Homeland Security. He was part of this Operation Underground Railroad. He is now a senior advisor at the Spear Fund. They are working to combat anti-trafficking organizations and provide quick and effective action plans. If you did see the movie, you know how powerful it is. I mean, if it wasn't true, you'd think it was a work of fiction. But it is all based on Tim's actions, his heroism, and the dedication of so many other people to fight human trafficking. And it brings it home in a way that any parent that sees this, it sends shivers through you. As I mentioned, he was at the Department of Homeland Security, makes it a lifelong mission to go down to South America and rescue these children who've been trafficked. He founded Operation Underground Railroad in October of 2013, served as the CEO until earlier this year, and then left before the movie hit theaters. And now he is, as I said, a senior advisor at the Spear Fund. And I'm excited to ask him all these things because it's amazing to think about how his work turned into this blockbuster movie and then played by Jim Caviezel to massive acclaim. But first, I want to tell you guys about the Patriot power generator. We've talked about this in the past. We've got natural disasters, extreme weather instances, hurricanes, and actually we've got national security concerns about our aging power grid that's more vulnerable than ever. There is 9 key substations that authorities have identified as being very, very concerning. And if you think about it, one of the things they're saying is if you knock out one of these key power grids, it could cost us power for up to 18 months. 18 months. I can't go 18 seconds, 18 minutes. You think about that days and weeks. I mean, having your own power supply is crucial. The Patriot power generator doesn't need gas. It's completely solar operated and it's portable. You can go anywhere you want. You can literally bring it into your house. Think about how crucial power is though. Phones, medical devices, tablets. If you've got kids, if you've got loved ones that rely on something electronic that has to be charged, even your refrigerator, how crucial is it to have a food supply after not just a day, but if weeks or months, if this thing happened now? If you go to 4patriots.com, use the code SPICER, you get 10% off your first purchase. If it's more than $97, you get free shipping. You always get their amazing guarantee for what you do. So go to 4Patriots. It's the number 4, patriots.com. Use the code SPICER, you get 10% off. Here's the thing. Do not wait. This is not something you want to deal with once disaster or unfortunate circumstances happen. Get ahead of the curve. Have this ready. Be the hero. 4patriots.com. Use code SPICER. All right, Tim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
It's great to hear in Washington. So you're testifying on Capitol Hill?
Yeah. Today I did the Homeland Security, the House Homeland Security Committee, tomorrow Foreign Affairs Committee.
Okay. And what do they want you to, what are they talking to you about?
The principal thing is the crisis at the border and children and trafficking and how the current administration's policies are actually facilitating, encouraging, incentivizing human traffickers and drug smugglers.
So the movie Sound of Freedom, I think, blew everyone's mind over the summer. It went from coming out to suddenly getting texts and emails like, did you see this? Did you hear this? My wife said one day, we got to go watch this. Were you surprised by the success of the movie?
Absolutely. Because I watched everybody turn it down. I mean, this thing was...
So let's walk back for a second, because I think that's important. How you live, this is your life.
Yeah.
How does it, what do they cut? Someone come to you and go, hey, a neighbor. I know a guy in Hollywood, like, how does this happen from you living your life, doing what you do, to someone saying, I want to tell the story?
So the operation that's depicted in the film, kind of the main operation, was October 11th, 2014. I'd left the government about a year before that to do it privately, which was frankly crazy. And so it's a crazy story that in and of itself. And then this operation ended up making a lot of press internationally. We rescued over 120 women and children, 15 traffickers down. And so it was a pretty big deal, and it made all the U.S. press. And so that got the attention of some producers. And we got actually, totally unexpected, but we got several inquiries from big studios. We turned down even a conversation with most of them.
Why?
Well, see, when this came up, I thought, man, this is something that could either make or break us. Like, I don't trust Hollywood at all. I think Hollywood produces a lot of the content that makes me have to do what I do on the demand side. And so I bring my wife in because she's much more spiritually in tune than me.
Smart man.
So I literally said to her, you have a veto power. You just make the decision if this is a good or up or down. And we had several meetings with big studios that you recognize the names, and it was no. She said no 3 times. And I remember walking off the lot of this huge, very well.
So were they offering you money though, or is it just to tell your story?
No, it was to offer to buy my life rights.
Right.
And then
how much is your life worth?
Exactly. It's a funny question.
She was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I say that because, you worked in government, then you went off and did this. And I would think someone comes to you and says, it's before the Trump administration, I'd been in the military, worked on campaigns or government, right? You do it because you love it. You don't do it because you're making a big paycheck.
Right.
And so I think sometimes someone walks on you and says, hey, I'll pay you this much money. That's a tough thing to turn down.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of kids.
Yeah. Well, the truth is we already made the decision. When I left the government job, someone calculated for me all that I was walking away from. I hadn't invested in my pension yet. So I walked away from so much money already. So I was already in this mindset of...
But see, the thing that's so funny is that I've spent, as of the end of this month, I'll enter my 25th year in the military, on the reserve side now. And everybody in the military knows how many years they have in and it's like, I vested here. And even in the government, I've been, done enough time between Capitol Hill and the executive branch. Everybody asks that, they want to know when their pension vests. How did you decide I'm just going to walk away from this?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a buildup. I had been told to come home many times because there was no nexus to the United States. And I'm thinking, who cares? Like, find a way, because these are children.
Right.
And so I was already kind of at my limit. And then there was 2 cases in 2013, the one that you see in the film, another one in Colombia, simultaneous. I was told about the same time, come home, you can't work either. So, and I'd promised the father in Haiti, who were looking for his son, that we would find his son, that we would never stop looking. And I couldn't go back on that promise.
So I in the movie, and I won't give everything away from people who haven't seen it yet, but I don't know if there's 5 people that haven't seen it yet. You make that decision. You say, I'm going to go out and do this. And you go tell your wife.
Yeah.
Like I said, how many kids do you have?
At the time we had 6. I'm 9 today. We adopted 2 that we rescued that very year.
So, okay. At the time you had 6.
Yeah.
And you're saying, I'm going to quit my government job and I'm going to go do this. And your wife in the movie is very supportive.
Well, actually, so the truth is something very different.
Good. Okay.
So
what's the truth?
What actually happened was I did a little virtue signaling, which I don't like, but I did to my wife. I wanted to come home and be like, there's no way. I pitched the idea that, hey, the only way I could do this is to leave. It was to assuage a little guilt because I knew I was not going to leave the government. And her line was supposed to be, of course you're not going to leave our stable job. But she, without even blinking an eye, said, what are you talking about? You think your job is more important than rescuing real children? Like, you think God's going to be okay with that when we get to the other side? Like, she went right into it. And I was like, whoa, I'm supposed to be the good guy. And and she swapped it on me. And it took some time. I started fighting her, actually. I was saying, this is crazy, and ultimately she ended it. It was several days, phone calls like, am I coming home or not? And she ultimately ended the argument with these words. And she said, I will not let you jeopardize my salvation by not doing this. That's how she felt. And
wow, that's powerful.
It was so powerful. I get chills even when I repeat it. And so I tell her.
I got chills.
I told Alejandro Monteverde, the director, I'm like, he's like, Tim, we can't work it into the movie because we only have 2 hours and that's not enough time to rehabilitate your character from coward to like decent person. So that's why you see what you see, a very reduced version, because I look so weak in cowardice. He thought I couldn't be rehabilitated fast enough in 2 hours.
Well, hey, smart call, because it comes off very well in the movie. So you give up this job and then say, I'm going to go do this. How does your family survive during that time? I mean, 6 kids is a lot of mouths to feed.
So it was a crazy time. I had just written a book, had nothing to do with human trafficking, and it didn't even do that well. But I got on the Glenn Beck show and with it because he liked it for some reason. So I kind of knew Glenn at the time, and I reached out to him and I told him what I was doing. And I barely got a hold of him because again, we're super close friends today. But then, I didn't know him that well. And he responded, and he had a very similar experience. Like, I got to meet my maker. I'm responding to this guy. And he says, I'll start raising you money right now. And he immediately started raising the money. Glenn Beck funded the operation in Cartagena. In fact, he was in the original script because he was the one that funded the operation.
I got to ask you a question. I know a lot of us are trying to live really healthy. We go to the gym. We're thinking about what we eat. But are you taking care of your liver? Because now more than ever, it's critical. The latest data actually from the American Heart Association indicates that adults with a fatty liver were 3.5 times more likely to have heart failure than those without it. And you think, well, I don't have a fatty liver. Here's the thing. According to the American Liver Foundation, 100 million Americans have fatty liver. I mean, that's a lot, which means that many, many people are at risk. And you think about all the stuff that your liver processes, cholesterol, alcohol, toxins, statins, cigarette smoke. Yeah, that's all getting processed through here. So in result is that you get a sluggish fatty liver that makes weight gain and energy get zapped out of you. So for decades, you know that your liver has been key. 500 functions happen through that liver every day. So you need to help that. And that's why Liver Health Formula is so important. It's an all-natural supplement that contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the U.S. Over 2 million bottles have already been sold. Go to Liver Health Formula and get a free bottle of omega-3, which will then also keep your heart healthy. Go to Get Liver Help, getliverhelp.com/Spicer. You get your free bonus gift by doing that. Take care of your liver. This is so important. You're working on so much else. Maybe you're walking, cutting back. Take care of that liver. Getliverhelp.com/Spicer. The thing that I love, I actually first met Glenn. I was up doing a Fleet Week in New York. And off stage, he took all these kids and got them, all these sailors, and he got them an amazing steak dinner and all this stuff. And he does it all. At that time, it was off camera. Now it's out of sight. Stuff that he funds and does without any credit.
Yeah. People, what Oscar Schindler did, right? And which is amazing. Glenn has done that times 100 already. And off camera, he doesn't talk about it. I've witnessed it. In fact, I was the CEO of the Nazarene Fund at the time when we did the Afghanistan operations. But he does so much and he risks a lot too. It's very risky to go out and raise money for a rescue operation that you don't know if it's going to happen. A lot of faith. Right. That's what he has.
So the thing that I thought was interesting, because I do want to get into the movie but I was shocked. I mean, I felt like every time, and again, I get it, it's a movie, but how real were the threats to your life? I mean, I just can't imagine going down and taking down these cartels. And again, because here's the thing that I get, you're rescuing these children. And obviously that comes through in the movie, but you've got 6 kids at home that are going to depend on you to make sure that they have a father that can provide for them, put food on the table for them, take care of their education as they grow older. I mean, how much does that factor in? Because in the movie, I keep going, oh my God, are you getting out of this situation? Yeah.
It was very scary because this was the first time I'm going to go in with no top cover. Right. I got the Colombian government, but you've all seen Narcos, right? Right. So it's like, and they were fine. They were great, but it was that was the argument I made to my wife. What you were saying, Catherine, yes, there's kids over here, but we have kids. I got to rescue my kids.
Right.
I felt like I had to choose. And she assured me that she said, no, these aren't mutually exclusive things. God will take care of our kids. I promise. I promise.
You don't hear about faith like that that often.
Right.
I mean, that's
when she gets that download, when it comes, it's so overwhelming to me because she's a very rational person. So when she asks me to do something irrational, I know it's coming from a higher source,
right?
Because it's not her.
So, in at that end of the movie, you go into that jungle. You're rescuing that. How real was all that?
So it's actually 3 different operations combined, and we did that because if we hadn't done it, it's actually just as exciting or probably more exciting of a story. In fact, the 2 kids, Rocio and Miguel, end up getting into the United States in real life. They're subjects of child rape material studios in San Bernardino. So, but we couldn't go that way because they're still, when they were writing it, at least they were still minors.
Right.
And so they took 3 different operations that were very real and put them together and made it one streamed kind of in one flow. But all the bad guys are real. All the kids are real. Everything that happened to the kids happened to them in real life or worse. And we actually have a documentary coming out. Angel Studios has it. It's called Operation Triple Take, which was the name of the operation. That's what we called it. It's going to come out in about a month or 2.
Okay.
And it's the documentary. We filmed everything. So it's the documentary version of Sound of Freedom.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, look, what Angel Studios touches goes nuts these days. So,
I know.
I mean, that's the upside. I want to come back to that in a second because I do want to ask you about that. But let's get back to the movie and the evolution of it, because you turn down these folks and then it gets bought, right? And then that studio gets sold to Sony to Disney or
So Fox did the original production.
Yeah.
And they were very excited. Fox International.
Yeah.
And then the movie was done. We were ready to go, 2020. And 2 things happened: COVID and theater shutting down, and Disney comes and buys Fox. And Disney watches the film and makes it very clear, we're not doing anything with this film. We're going to put it on the shelf. And we're just.
And do you know about that? When that happens, because I've heard, I mean, there's times you hear these stories in Hollywood, they'll buy a story so that it doesn't air or something like that. Do they let you know that that's the case, or do you hear kind of through your sources?
No, they were very direct to the producer, Eduardo Verastegui, that, Fox is out, we're in, and we're not doing anything with this film. That's it. I'm like, what do you mean you're not doing anything with this film?
So at that point, you as what does that mean for you?
So I'm kind of on the sidelines in some ways at this point. I'm just kind of watching. I'm the subject of this film. They already bought my life rights, but I'm thinking, well,
so you get paid no matter what.
Yeah, they already paid me my life rights, and so I'm just like, okay, well.
But now you're like,
sorry,
now no one gets to see it.
Yeah, I can't believe no one's going to see this film. It's over. It's done. And I felt this peace though. I told Eduardo and Alejandro, like, guys, I felt this peace. Like, God's going to get this thing out at the right time, and it really is the right time, because when they wrote that thing, the scene of the border, for example, there wasn't a border crisis at that time.
Right.
It was just what happened in the story. I didn't have to defend the fact that the walls actually compelled Bachman to bring the child through the port of entry, because that was 2 + 2 = 4. We didn't even, and so who knew that, 5 years later, the movie lands in time to be part of the solution to the border crisis, where people don't understand how walls and barriers save children. And now they get to see it in a movie that's depicting the reality.
Okay. So Disney tells you they're shelving it.
Yeah.
And then where does it go from there?
So now Eduardo's freaking out. Yeah, he takes him a year to get it out of their hands. So he went to his friend at Goya Foods.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. At Bob, you know Bob?
Yes, I've met him.
Yeah. So Bob came in and bailed us out.
He bailed us out. How? Did
he paid what was needed to get Disney's attention to release it.
It's kind of whacked that you're doing a movie about human trafficking and someone has to, pay the vig.
It's like he had to pay the hostage. Yeah. To get the hostages out. That's what it felt like. But Bob did that. And then it got out. Now it's free again. And now Eduardo takes it. Okay, this movie's so good, turned down by Netflix, turned down by Amazon. Everybody turned it down. So they're like, what is going on? I thought this must be a really bad movie. I'm too close to it.
I can imagine. I get what you do something and you're like, hey, what's wrong with me?
Right. I'm embarrassed. I'm like, sorry. I kept saying, sorry, my story wasn't interesting enough for a movie. Like, I was feeling bad, And then Angel Studios happens upon it. And how that happened was pretty cool. I was actually on the set of The Chosen because I got invited.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's a set that's Jerusalem.
Yeah. No,
Gershon, Utah.
Yeah.
And someone invited me there, and it just happened to be the only day that Neil and Jordan Harmon, who run Angel Studios, they happened to be there. They were only there one time during that 4-month shoot, and I was only there one time. And we were there in Jerusalem, and we connected. We recognized each other. I told them about this movie. They said, let's see it. And
do you know how many times people in Hollywood get told, like, or in Nashville or, LA, it's like, I got this great script. I got this great song.
Yeah.
And they're like, but no one ever says send it. So they see it.
Yeah. They see it. And the minute someone else had the rights for a second, for shopping rights, so they had to let that, a few months later, that left them, and Angel's jumped right on it. The minute we sat down with Angel and Eduardo, 5 days. Angel said they've never done a deal that fast. In 5 days, the deal was signed. 90 days later was July 4th. That's how fast. It's like, it was crazy. It was crazy. Like that, after 5 years, then boom, just 90 days, and it's on. That's how
so
fast
what are you and your wife? I mean, at that point, you're like, is that when you're like, wow, we were right. It's God's plan here.
Yes. I knew it was God's plan. And I knew that I felt it was going to be big, but not at this point, because now you see the hand of God. Yeah. And you're like, okay, something's going to happen here. I feel something happening here. So I actually, I resigned from the 2 foundations that I was running at the time. So I wouldn't have any entanglements from nonprofit law, and I could be independent to really help this film. And then it just, wow. I mean, we hit 200 million last week, and it's still the #1 movie in Latin America. It's still, every single country in Latin America is the number. We can't walk through the airports in Quito or Bogota or Buenos Aires. I'm not kidding. Like, everybody's talking about this film in Latin America now.
So did you know that, I mean, obviously at some point you knew Caviezel gets brought into this, and are you thinking, this is like I'm getting played by Jim Caviezel?
Oh, it was my choice.
Really?
That was my choice. They didn't want him, actually. so they came to me, Alejandro came to me, and he said, he
played Jesus, for goodness
sake.
Right.
And it wasn't because he wasn't a great actor. It's because if at the end of the film, you notice there's a morph of a face.
Yeah.
From Jim to my face, and then it shows real footage. That was always written to the script, and they said, Tim, to make this work, it's got to be someone that kind of looks like you.
You're like I look like Caviezel.
Yeah. and really, if Jim and I stand next to each other, it's nothing. There's no. And I said, well, and this is what I told him. I said, I don't trust Hollywood again. And I reminded Alejandro that he had told me that whoever plays me has to say more with his eyes than he does with his mouth. And I said, that's Caviezel. I mean, Caviezel acts through his eyes.
Right.
He communicates with the audience almost spiritually, in my opinion. And he loves Jesus. I told him he loves Jesus. And that matters to me, because that's without my love of the Lord, like I wouldn't do anything I was doing. And so that makes sense to me. And I pushed it so hard. But how hard is it to get, I mean, I've had Joe, I've talked to Jim in the past on different projects that he's working on, but like, how hard is it to get Jim Caviezel? Was he like, sure, I'll do it? Well, that's the other crazy part of this. So Eduardo Verostegui had his number. So it was an old number. He didn't know if it was still active. He calls him the day I say it's got to be him. He picks up the phone and like, hey, we got this script. And he's expecting the regular, like, give it to my agent and you'll never hear from him again. He said about human trafficking. He's like, send it to me. He sent it to him. No, he said, come over to my house. He was in LA. Eduardo was in LA. They went over to the house. He committed that night. He was crying. Now what happened, we didn't know this. Jim had adopted 3 children from China, and 2 of them he got them out of trafficking situations. So he's sobbing.
So this is personal to him.
It was personal from the beginning, and he signed on day 1.
Holy smoke. All right. You guys have heard me talk about Delta Rescue. This is an organization that is on a lifelong mission to make sure that abandoned animals, maybe that people couldn't keep, that they weren't good at keeping, or that they're just horrible people. They let go of dogs, cats, horses, whatever. Delta Rescue literally comes to the rescue. They are the largest care for animal sanctuary in the world. This is a no-kill shelter. This is the kind of thing, if you're an animal lover, we need to support Delta Rescue. They take care of animals that don't have anywhere else to go or anyone to help them. They give them a place to play, make sure they got the nutrition, the food, the veterinary care, all the things that are important to them. And again, it's a no-kill shelter. And that's important because not every dog or cat or horse or whatever can be rescued within the timelines of a lot of shelters. And they don't have the capacity. Delta Rescue, because of the contributions of people like me and you, and that's it. That's the only thing they get, No contribution too small. That allows them to do the work that they do. So please think about it. Whatever you can do, 5, 10, 20 bucks, $100, but you'll get their newsletter. You'll hear about the amazing work and you'll see some of the stories. It's truly yeoman's work what they're doing. So go to deltarescue.org. Do anything you can to help them, because these are the kind of organizations that are doing such great work that it's awesome to be able to help support them. deltarescue.org. Go check them out. And if you can, please support them. The thing that's so fascinating about your story is that it's sort of like you go, no, wait, there's more. Every second there's another, but wait, there's more.
Yeah.
Right. So the movie comes out, and to your point, like, I don't know, you've kind of waited 5 years, you get Caviezel in this thing. What were your expectations about how it was going to launch?
Oh, geez. I mean, this is the truth. I remember sitting down with Angel Studios, and these are brilliant human beings, right? And it was a $14 million production. And they said, if everything aligns, we could hit 35 million. I'm like, wow.
You're right. That's a bit, that's $15 million.
Right. That would have been amazing. Right. And so all of us, when it happened, I mean, we just looking at each other. It's almost like you're looking at each other and you don't even know what to say, because they haven't been here or we haven't been here. Well, very few people have been here in this position. I kept calling Alejandro, like, bro, do you realize you're the director of the #1 movie in America? Do you realize you're the director of a movie? I mean, I'm so happy for him because this is his life, like this is, he's a brilliant filmmaker. So I think it was almost, we're all God-fearing people. And I think we all just realized, just work as hard as we can, but we're on a ride and God's steering the ship,
So what, but it wasn't like you say, we hope we make 30, it makes 50, then it clears 100. At what point are you going, oh my goodness, like this isn't like you're ahead of Jurassic Park.
Yeah. That's when I knew when we beat Indiana Jones the first day.
Sorry.
And then we beat Mission Impossible on top of that. And here's the other indication I knew that we were going to take off is every movie starts with a certain amount of theaters and then it goes down.
Right.
We did the opposite. We started with a pretty significant amount of theaters and every week we're going up.
And I noticed that because I have 2 kids, they'd want to go out and see, the Indiana Jones film, the Mission Impossible film. And suddenly you started to hear Sound of Freedom is going to be in the theater, and it built, and it just kept getting more and more and more attention.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, but I do want to get back to human trafficking in a minute. So when this thing comes out, and I had seen the trailer, I had a lot of friends text me and all this stuff. And before I could actually watch it, I start hearing about QAnon. And obviously, in the campaign world, this is something that I never really fully appreciated and understood QAnon. I still don't, but I knew it was a disparity. I mean, it was sort of to make something crazy.
Yeah.
So I go watch the movie, and I remember texting some friends that, had been very supportive of the movie and that knew some people. And I said, okay, what did I miss? I don't get this. Cause I never got up, right? I was that moved. I couldn't leave. Right. So I was like, okay, I watched it from start to finish. I don't get what I missed. Right. I still to this day, I was like, so can you explain the QAnon thing? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, I turn on CNN and they're talking about QAnon as a criticism for this movie. As someone who had been like a Department of Homeland Security guy, what was your reaction to this? What was it? It was a QAnon adjacent.
QAnon adjacent.
And I was like Googling, what is QAnon adjacent?
Well, apparently I'm the leader of QAnon. I don't even know what it is. So I'm waiting to find out my instructions from someone.
But as a guy and I don't mean it like, that doesn't live in the political world, are you like, what the heck is QAnon and how am I adjacent, or how is the movie adjacent, or who's adjacent? And
right. Well, my first thought was, okay, why do the leftist media, why do they not want people to see this movie?
Right.
Because they know they're lying. The film, funny enough, was done. They forgot. The lie didn't work very long because they forgot that the film had been shelved for 5 years. QAnon came after the film.
Oh my God.
Done.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So that's why I knew right away, okay, they're lying. They know they're lying. Why? What are they afraid of? That became my first, and I think I figured it out.
What?
I think they don't want to have a conversation. This film is going to force a conversation about children.
Right.
The 85,000 children at the border that disappeared. The fact that children are being given pornography in the name of sex education. The fact that children are being allowed to, consent to surgical mutilation at 12 or 13 years old. And this has to do with a pedophile movement, all of this. I mean, the pedophile movement, and the same agenda, by the way, the same media outlets who are calling us QAnon and whatever else, they're also trying to change the name pedophile to minor attracted persons.
Minor attracted
persons. They're trying to normalize it and add it to the LGBTQ. And fortunately, they're pushing the LGBT.
That one down. I can't believe
it is insane. It's a real movement. So there's an agenda being pushed. I've noticed every time an anti-peace hits me or my operations or my teams, I'm telling you, like a week later.
But can I just, did you at any point, and I'm not kidding, because I had this reaction. I literally was like, I must have like closed my eyes. I don't get where this, and I can't, no one has fully explained it to me except for saying someone who was like, I don't know, what do they call them? Like a key grip on the movie, his cousin, watched something. I mean, like, I was like, I don't get it. I'm literally not trying to be a difficult here, but someone explained to me this. Has anyone ever given you an adequate explanation as to how you can put that word, aside from your explanation, which I agree, but has anyone ever said to you credibly, well, this is what they're trying to do?
Nope, never.
Right.
Never. In fact, they won't even explain what's in it.
But they also go after your organization or your former organization now, Operation Underground, saying that it glamorizes human trafficking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's another lie. I mean, we film all of our operations. We have multiple documentaries done by third-party documentary people. We've brought people like Tony Robbins on operations. Glenn Beck's come on operations. The Attorney General of Utah, Sean Reyes, has been on many. Why would we do that if we're not? You can't exaggerate or glamorize.
But also, here's what I don't get. I get it's based on a real story.
Yeah.
But I've watched countless movies, TV shows based on a true story. I don't ever see anyone saying, oh my gosh, The Wire glamorizes crime in Baltimore.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't say this is a documentary. It's a movie.
Right.
And it seemed odd to me that the movie they pick on, I mean, you started this conversation by saying these guys glamorize drugs. You didn't say this, but you were saying that they, in so many ways, do things that cause part of the problem.
Yeah.
They glamorize the sexualization of children.
Yes, they do.
They glamorize the use of drugs. They glamorize lifestyles that, are not probably the most, Christian. That's probably a good way to put it. And yet they picked on this movie to say you're glamorizing human trafficking.
Well, I just talked to the 54 kids that we rescued and asked them if it was glamorized, if anything was underplayed.
One of the points that they make, or seem to, again, I don't completely get it, but when I was doing this research ahead of this discussion with you, it was like, well, they're playing up the certain aspects of it versus others, right? There's probably more.
That was their big argument, which it's like only 8% of rescues happen this way or trafficking.
But who cares?
Well, that's what I said. 8% of millions of kids.
But how many fires happen because of whatever? And they make a movie about firefighters and you go, or a medical show and they go, not that many people get brought to ER with, stab wounds. And yet the TV show ER glamorizes.
Exactly.
Only so many people come to the ER.
Isn't that crazy? And that's what they're doing to us. It's insane. And it's competing organizations that are saying, oh, that's not really what it actually looks like. You did the world a disservice. And I come back and say, look, I did you a great service because we're talking about it. Now you come in and tell your stories.
But even if you just say, hypothetically, you rescued one kid. Why does that matter? I mean, I'm like, somebody in the world is suffering because of this and you're helping them.
Right.
And they're like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right. And I'm not a good guy. I'm the bad guy in their narrative somehow. And like, my wife's like, how are you the bad guy in these narratives?
But I remember at one point, Scott Pelley does this thing with you on 60, I don't know if he was a 60 Minutes
CBS,
because he's been moved around so many times that I'm not really sure where he's employed now. But they talked about the great work that you're doing.
That's right. That was back in 2014, days after the operation.
Before the movie, you were awesome.
Right. It was all good and real and amazing. And then 8 years later, the story didn't change, but they changed.
Right.
All of a sudden, it didn't happen. What? You guys reported that it did. CBS News was on the ground with us on the island. We let them on.
But as sort of, and I say this like civilian, as like, you don't play in politics, you don't play in the media. Did you go, what happened? Like, why am I, you didn't do anything to deserve this. There's no pictures coming out and saying, here's Tim Ballard actually hitting a kid.
Right.
How did you, I get asked all the time about these guys that you knew in the media, they turned on you. I mean, I can't say I was like some of it was surprising, yes, but I think a lot of them are bad people in general. Were you surprised that you're going, I help people, I literally sacrifice time with my family, and now you're making me seem like I'm not a decent person. Maybe I'm not a hero, but I'm not a bad person.
Right. It was bizarre. It was like everything turned on its head.
Yeah.
There was a story in the local, the Salt Lake Tribune in Utah, where the guy took the court records from the kids that were rescued on the border, which gives you, as you know, like 1/100th of the story. It's the court records. It's the affidavit for the arrest warrant, and said anything else Tim said is a lie because it's not in the court records. And then the headline is Tim Ballard's a liar. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
Like, why would I write about the kid giving me a necklace in the affidavit? It did happen. I have the necklace that the kid gave me. Like that kind of stuff. Well, it's not the court record. And they know they're lying because they're not dumb. They know that I'm not going to put every detail in the affidavit, but it's anything to make me bad. I have to be a liar. I have to be bad. I have to be the bad guy in these narratives. I don't really understand it.
As a parent, I literally had chills come through me when I watched the movie. Because I literally told my wife, I'm like, it made me as a father say, oh my God, how vulnerable are our children? The way that story opens. And there are so many times when our kids get invited to something and you just say, of course, they're like, we'll leave them, with this organization, or we'll trust that. And I watched that father walk out of that photo shoot, I guess is what really, okay. And I think, okay, how many times maybe have I done something where I leave the kids and trust that they're going to be okay? If you're a parent in America right now, I get the movie takes place in South America, but how worried should you be about child trafficking?
Oh, I'd be very, very worried. It does look differently. To the credit of those critics. You're right. It does look differently here. I executive produced a documentary called It's Happening Right Here. And it's on Amazon Prime, and it tells exactly what to look out for. And it's not necessarily traffickers on beaches, but it's going to be online. It's the traps online. And so that's where parents have to wake up. Know what apps your kids have, know what communication platforms exist on your kids' phone. Even like they're playing Fortnite and parents don't realize there's a communication board and they're not playing the computer. They're playing some pedophile.
Believe me, the games where they go, it's and I'm sitting there going, I'm scared about the games.
Yes.
That's the back door in.
Yes.
And all of these other apps that they have on their phones where someone's potentially going to reach out to them.
That's right. That's where it's going to start, especially in the United States.
So you're up here in Washington, D.C., you're meeting with lawmakers, you're testifying on the Hill. Do they get it?
Half of them do.
Is it completely partisan?
It's completely partisan.
So when you talk to a Democrat who cares about children and you say human trafficking is a problem, what is their answer?
They don't want it. They won't talk. The funny thing is I was waiting for them to ask me questions. Only the Republican side even asked me questions because I'm specifically talking about the border policies that are open borders, facilitate trafficking. It's very simple. It's so obvious, in fact, that they won't even ask me a question.
Right.
They brought this other guy in to talk about something else.
So does meeting with them based on your experience, so you meet with these lawmakers, you see what they care about and don't care about. You've been extremely impactful through your work. Do you say to yourself, maybe there's something more for me? Maybe I should run for office?
It's funny. Since Sound of Freedom took out any opportunity for me to ever be an operator again,
right?
Those days are done.
They know your face.
They know my face. But starting several weeks ago, I've been asked by a lot of very influential people, names you would even know, asking me to throw in.
But you just today, we're sitting here and recent, we now know Mitt Romney is not going to run again. You live in Utah.
Yeah.
There's a seat that's going to be open.
Well, that's the very seat that I was asked to look at weeks ago. And I was very seriously considering it then.
And how about now?
And
this
now
is a lot easier.
I'll be honest, even more so. I'm very, very serious.
What gets you in?
My wife and prayer and just making sure.
So she says yes. When you go home, you're in.
That's how it's always worked in the past.
Okay.
So even before Senator Romney announced his retirement, a lot of things were building up to this consideration. I was with the president of Honduras last week.
Okay.
And the president of Guatemala last week. And I was just listening to them and their plight and their tears over the plight of their people because of our border policies. We're talking about millions of people being affected by forms of slavery because of the wind that our policies put into the sales of child traffickers. And I thought there has to be something done, more done at the federal level. So it just kept building and building and building. At the same time that's happening, I'm getting phone calls from people. Hey, I think you got to throw in now. And so then I literally got word as I was testifying today at the House Homeland Security Committee. I stand up and they say, "Hey, Romney's out." So that just took, that level of deep thought to a place of even more.
Okay.
Kind of.
Well, look, I think that you have a lot of support in Utah. Thank you for sharing the story with us today. Congratulations on the success of the movie. And look forward to seeing you maybe back here a little bit more often.
Would love to.
All right.
Would love to.
Thanks, Tim.
Sean.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. That was unbelievable. I had seen the movie, as I said. What a powerful story Tim Ballard tells. And to get the real inside scoop about how that movie was made, the commitment that he had to getting it out, that was awesome. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can share this with folks over the weekend. And what a big scoop on him running potentially for the U.S. Senate out there in Utah. This Romney decision is going to be big. And I think you're going to hear it here first. That was news. Share that with folks, because my guess is sometime next week, you're going to hear a major announcement from Tim on this. And he said it here first. As we wrap up the week, it's been big, right? This impeachment talk, government spending, and the clock is ticking towards the end of the month. Government will shut down. My prediction, for what it's worth, it's going to shut down. Now, they may get the DOD bill done. Maybe, maybe not. But remember, there are 12 bills to fund the government. They've only passed one. So there's no question, and you heard earlier this week, Congressman Self on the show on Wednesday talk about the fact that he doesn't see it happening. And that's the consensus throughout all of the members that I've talked to up on the Hill. Government will shut down on October 1st. The question is, for how long, and what is the deal that gets it out? And obviously, this impeachment talk continues to ramp up. We continue to hear about motions to vacate the chair to get rid of McCarthy. Where are they going on this? This is going to be a big thing. And as Congressman Self said earlier this week, this whole idea of border security and immigration, the demands they have to fund the Department of Homeland Security, that's a whole nother issue. So we've got a lot to get to and a lot to break down in the next couple of weeks. We're going to bring it to you every single day with guests that you're not going to see anywhere else, taking an in-depth look on those issues so that you know what's really, really happening in our government and how we can affect change. The nut of this show is to make sure that you have the information and the ability, the action, the tactics to make some real change. Complaining is great. There's a lot of people out there. But what I think is important is how can we do things that actually move the needle and make this happen? This Biden agenda is too scary. The policies that they're enacting, both overseas and here at home, are changing the fabric of our country. The good news is that there are people willing to fight. Tim Ballard being one of them. We saw Keith Self the other day, congressman from Texas. He's willing to fight. If we have their back, we can actually get things done. But we need to support them. The media is not on our side. So many of the establishment, bureaucracy is not on our side. But we can do this. Because I think at some point, somebody blinks. And the person who blinks is the person who doesn't have the support of the American people. The good thing is the facts are on our side. So as we move into this weekend, please do me a favor, as you've continued to do. Please subscribe. Go to all of those different platforms, the audio platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then also go to YouTube and Rumble if you can. Again, if you're watching on the first, thank you for watching us every day. Continue to share these conversations with friends and let them know that we're bringing this to you because no one else will. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.